The Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return.
Hello, and welcome to the Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return. My name is Joni Siegel, and I'm the host for this podcast. Today's episode is episode number 232. Please be sure and subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, and also be sure and subscribe to our YouTube channel. When you do this, it helps people find our podcast. And the whole purpose is to give people hope and to let them know that help is available. So we want as many people as possible to be able to find our podcast. So please subscribe, give us a good rating if you can. So today we have an interview with a gentleman named Manny Mendez. Manny received his School of Hard Knocks diploma in some of the hardest correctional institutes since he was a youth. After gaining his physical freedom, he began a long journey to free his mind from the prison of addiction. Now he uses art and filmmaking to help others and to stay sober himself. Let's talk to Manny Mendez. Manny Mendez, thank you so much for being willing to tell your story on the podcast. Being an artist myself, I am super excited to talk with you.
Thank you. Honored.
You're very kind. So Manny, tell us about your background, like where you grew up, what your life was like, and kind of then how you segued into drugs.
First of all, thank you once again. And I really think that I was genetically disposed to this from birth. As growing up, it was definitely not your average home. I was born in Cuba. My home was the underground liquor store, and where the games took place. Cards, dominoes. So we know the element: gambling, booze. So at a very young age, man, I remember these old men giving me quarters for picking up their beer bottles, and somewhere along that line, I would drink, the remainder at the end, and they laughed at me. Oh, look, I'm gonna get hair on your chest, and there was also abuse from my father's side. He's a great dad. I'll never take anything away from him. He did the best he could with what he knew because he didn't have a father. From what I understand, my grandfather was also an alcoholic. So yeah, man, that was.
Manny, it's hard. I'm not to like justify or whatever. I mean, ultimately, and I know you're going to say you take responsibility for your own actions, but when you take a young child and all they know is alcoholism and petty crime, if that's all they know, how are you supposed to learn another way of life?
It's funny you say that because one of my earliest, memories was visiting my dad in prison as well. And guess what? My grandfather had also been in prison. So, and it's you mentioned that, we take responsibility, and it's crazy because I just did my first ever solo film, and I made sure that I stated that in my documentary. My father was a great man, still is. And, there's kids who went through a lot worse than what I did and didn't turn out to do the things I did. So, thank you.
Understood. So how long were you in Cuba? You're in the U.S. now. How did you get here? What was that like?
My dad turned out to be a political prisoner, and he arrived here in 1980, came straight from prison. And then a few months later, we were requested by him, through the FoReel boat lift. This is during the 1980 era when Jimmy Carter opened up the FoReel port. So we arrived, and me and my mom took the that boat ride from Cuba here to Key West, the same way you saw it in Scarface movie, beginning with. And I remember arriving, man. I was 8 or 9 years old, man. It was exciting, but it was was fearful for a young man, you know, because you just left all your friends. They didn't allow me to bring my piggy bank.
What's with that? I
You know,
mean,
the regiment wanted the money. They didn't want you to take currency out, man. You were allowed to pack whatever you could carry with you that was clothes, nothing else. And you only had like, you know, a little few minute window before you could load the bus. It was crazy.
yeah.
You know.
Okay, so where did you land? I mean, I know you landed in Key West, but where did you end up?
Miami,
Miami. Okay. All
Florida.
right.
We stayed in Miami, Florida for about 3 or 4 months, excuse me. And we from Miami, Florida. We decided we wanted to go to Dallas, Texas, because my mom's brother was there. And that's where the story takes a turn.
Okay.
You know, Texas was a cultural shock from Miami. You know, I was introduced um, to the West Coast culture, the Chicanos, the lowriders, and I was the only tropical Caribbean kid, you know, from Miami, Florida, Cuba. You know, I was just learning the language, and you know, they didn't know what to do with me. They put me in ESOL classes. I fought. I was suspended. You know,
Now, forgive my ignorance, but your main language was Spanish, right?
yeah, yeah,
Okay, good. So then you're in Texas and you don't speak much English, and there you go.
yeah, yeah. And it was there that I first experimented with marijuana. Uh,
Okay. How old were you?
11 years old.
Oh my goodness, Manny.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I had other little, you know, defects of characters that weren't normal for a kid my age. I like to get away with things. I like to steal. I cheated. I manipulated. I lied. You know, so even before the hardcore drugs took place, I already had these traits that today I know. You know what led me to, you know, being a career criminal. And, you know, everything else that happened in my life was, you know, family was poor. Um,
Where'd you get the pot? And were you giving it to others? I mean,
it was after school, you know, riding BMX bicycles, you know, young, you know, trying to fit in, you know, which I adapted real quick. You know, I didn't have a problem, you know, with being with people like me who didn't feel, you know, in place with the others. And I just, you know, joined this little clique, man. And one day after school, we were sitting out there. I remember that like it was clear as yesterday. It was by the railroad tracks with our bikes, and we was just hanging out. And you know, lo and behold, you know, somebody pulled a joint. They didn't even ask. They just passed it around, and with no hesitation, I blew out my lungs that day. You know, but it made me feel good.
so how did you progress from there? People
Uh,
tell us, oh, pot is not a gateway drug. So,
oh,
yeah.
you know, so we stayed in Texas for about 2 years, but my father, you know, he's thin blooded like me, man. We can't stand them blizzards and, you know, walking and falling and slipping on ice. That's just not for us. So we decided to come back to Miami. Uh, the behaviors continued, but, you know, something else happened. I noticed that, you know, marijuana was starting to take a hold of me. And, you know, by the time I was 12 years old, I was in and out of juvenile detention centers in Miami, um,
For
doing,
the marijuana usage or for
yeah,
crime related to that?
yeah, crimes related to marijuana usage.
Okay. Okay.
Uh, you know, and this was a really critical point, not only in our era, you know, 82, 83, 84, but it was also for me because I was starting to find my ways and in the direction that I was going from, you know, the things I was doing just to get marijuana to the next, you know, segment that took place, which was the crack epidemic.
Mm.
And that blew the lid off the jar. any
How
hope.
how were you introduced to crack, Manny? Same thing, just friends?
Yeah, man, I remember that clearly as well. We was at a there was a tire shop in Miami. This is in Hialeah, Florida. And in this tire shop, I was the youngest, man. I always hanged out with an older crowd. These guys, we smoked weed, we drank beer, and behind the tire shop was the apartment where our friend who worked in the tire shop lived. And we just happened to be back there, and once again, man, and they pulled out a can, and they started putting ashes, and they said, "Try this." 13 years old,
Wow. Wow.
and it was over.
Okay. So keep going with your story. What happened then? Were you involved in gangs at all?
Yeah, yeah. I was already in juvenile halls. At this moment, I was. It was like a stronghold got a hold of me, man. It was like I was possessed by demons, and what transpired next was a life of institutions where the gang activities, and life, you felt you fit in with a certain sect or a clique. Um, I share this with my story when I'm asked to speak, and from this moment on, I was raised more by institutions than I was by my own family.
Hmm.
There were moments my family begged the judge not to let me out.
Wow. Oh.
Uh,
Okay. Sorry. Makes
no,
me feel bad for how young you were.
I there were moments where I felt bad, but you know what? I wouldn't be the man I am today if I didn't go through that, and I wouldn't change anything. You know,
There's that.
right after that, I was in and out of juvenile programs, state school, um, every juvenile program that was around Miami area. I went to treatment. I forgot to mention, I went to my first treatment at 13. I went to Charter Hospital in Miami. Um, right after that, because my mom, the obsession was immediately, every chance I can, I found a can and I found the ways to get means and ways to get more. And I was smoking crack every day. And one day she found the can, found me hidden the can, and did her little research and found out what it was. And I went to treatment right after. Um, about a year later, 2 years later, in and out, in and out, in and out, they decided to do that geographical change. We all know that, right? But we and they forget to mention we bring us everywhere we go. That's the problem. It's not the place. Uh, and I moved to West Palm Beach, Florida. Uh, it worked out for a little bit, like most addict stories, when they relocate. Um, and that little bit, it's maybe about 6 months, and I found myself back in that vicious cycle of crime, drugs, and I got arrested. I was 17 years old by this time, and
And then you're tried as an adult, right?
yeah, I was tried. Well, I took a plea. I wasn't going to go to trial. I have 43 counts of burglaries, grand theft, stealing stolen properties, uh, from Palm Beach to Broward County, and they couldn't send me to this drug program that was by the state because of the pending charges that I had in another county. So I took a plea bargain, uh, and it totaled out to like 18 and a half year sentence
Wow.
at 18 years old.
Oh my God. How
Uh,
long did you serve, Manny?
11 and a half years, day for day. You know, uh, it sounds brutal and crazy. And how did you do it? And I don't know how I did it. I think it's funny because we think we become creatures of habit in any state of mind we place ourselves in, whether it be an addiction, whether it be in a normal life, we become creatures of habit. Uh, and waking up every day after 2, 3 years in prison became a habit, man. I didn't. My dreams were no longer of Christmas or being with my family. My dreams were of where I was at: football games, cards, commissary, playing sports, um, but I learned a lot in there. Um, People jokingly say it's the greatest, school of hard knocks, um, and I really truly believe that God was starting to mold me there. I couldn't see it. We can't see nothing when we're in the darkness and the chaos. But that's where I learned how to draw and paint.
In prison.
Yeah, that's where I nurtured, that gift that I had.
You are listening to the Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return. For more information on the podcast or to reach out if you have a story you would like to share with us, go to our Facebook page by the same name, or you can email us at theaddictionpodcast@yahoo.com, or go to our website, theaddictionpodcast.com, or call us at 727-314-7080. And please remember to subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts and give us a 5-star review. Sometimes the hardest thing about getting someone into recovery is getting them to agree to treatment. Bobby Newman, a certified drug counselor with 30 years experience and an over 85% success rate as an interventionist, has created a series of 12 videos that you can use right now to learn every step to get your loved one to agree to treatment. Call 1-833-918-0008 today and say the word podcast to get a 10% discount. Or go to newmaninterventions.com and type in the word podcast for a 10% discount. This service comes with a free 1-hour consultation with Bobby. And did you do any kind of lessons, or you just kind of realized that it was something you could possibly do and you just sat down and started doing it?
I realized that I could get honey buns, Roman noodles, and chips if I made envelopes of prison cards for big stuff.
Whatever works,
that was enough. But the irony is, I became good at it, and like I said,
were you still doing drugs in prison, Manny, or did you stop? Or
no, in prison I stopped.
Okay.
Like every great addict, we're good at good intentions. You know what I mean? I had good intentions. Boy, I could write a book on great intentions. And I wasn't gonna do no drugs in prison, because if I did drugs in prison, I was gonna catch a life sentence and I was gonna die in there. And God had gave me the strength, to avoid all that, man. My first couple of years I did act up behavioral wise, but I stayed clean in prison for 7 years, 11 months, and 2 weeks.
Wow.
And, yeah, the day that I did decide to smoke a joint, with my luck, it was my birthday, and they did give me a UA. Yeah, I ain't got no luck when I get out. I get consequences. So I spent the whole summer in solitary confinement in Florida. If there was a hell on earth, it was there. There was no AC in that prison I was at. And I tell you, I got PTSD in the summertime.
Oh, man, that's awful. So it was somewhere in there while you were in prison. Was it while you were at prison or when you got out that you kind of had your epiphany or your point of no return and realized that you needed to get your act together? When did that occur for you?
It occurred 12 years after I was released. I know, right? Yeah, I got out with great intentions again. And, I did the recovery thing, for a few stints, 3 months, 90 days, 60 days, 6 months. And I couldn't get it together, man. I didn't have, I wasn't ready. And, it's funny, because you say, well, when you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, you'll change. I was sick and tired quite a few, many times, but there's a difference between being tired and being done. And that's what I realized, 12 years later, January 16, 2012. after losing marriage, losing businesses, losing myself, ending up homeless, still going in and out of these state-ran facilities, which I'm forever grateful for, because each time I went into one of these state-ran rehabs, a seed was planted, and God, continued to steer me. One of the last places I went to was the Lord's Place and the Homeless Assessment Center. Um, and I came to a conclusion, man. How come I only paint or draw when I'm in treatment or in rehab or in jail?
Ah.
I never painted when I was like clean. And finally, on January 16th, 2012, I said, you know what, man, I'm going to give this art thing a shot while trying to get clean. Because I've never been diagnosed, but I had, problem facing, paying attention. Uh, but if I'm drawing or writing, I can pay attention. And I started to do that in meetings with my little sketchbook, sketch pad, and started doing the envelopes for the money that goes in the basket that they send to areas. Started doing those envelopes. I got messages sent back from area. Continue to draw and paint. Beautiful, man. You know,
I just love that. One of the places I was looking at what I had printed out about you, because I always do a little bit of a bio, but one of the places I was looking at on the web said that, you found your new best friend, which was art, and I thought, oh, is this some guy he met that was art? And then I went, no, 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 come on, he's talking about art, like the art that is behind you on the wall.
I don't know about you other people, but there was some form of healing and learning how to be still, because my brain was always running, man, and racing, and I could never hone anything down, and I think that was why I couldn't capture the 12 steps, or I couldn't capture recovery as a whole. Uh, I get bored easily. I can't sit still long enough in a meeting. You know, my,
At the risk of evaluating for you, and if I do, I apologize, but it sounds to me like while the 12 step is a great program, you kind of needed something else in addition to that, which turned out to be your creativity and your use of aesthetics. And that's huge. We've interviewed people on the podcast before who use aesthetics in recovery, and it's amazing. But you don't just do paintings like the one behind you on the wall. What other kinds of creativity do you do, Manny?
I got into filmmaking, and I've been blessed with a wonderful team, man, and a guy that I met along the way by the name of Richard Jackson from Nice Flicks. Shout out to him. And he shared my vision, man. And people ask me, man, they tell me, well, I'm not an artist. I say, man, we're all artists. We just haven't found what we're passionate about. Being an artist is not about painting or having brushes or pencils.
I totally agree. There are so many ways to use aesthetics in your life, even if it's helping others, and you can make an art out of that. Do you know? So you are totally right. I like that you tell people that, because so often, I remember years ago knowing a woman who was a chef, and I said, "You're an artist?" And she's, "Oh, no, I'm not an artist." And I'm like, "Yeah, you are. What you do with food is an art form." So you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny, because if I would have never tuned into my art, I would have never tuned into the other creative platforms. Writing. I started writing while I was in detox. Just, what's that called? Doing notes and poetry,
Journaling and yeah, yeah,
journaling.
yeah.
And, I found out that I was pretty good, but I was never a talkative person in early recovery. I wasn't the one to always want raising my hand at a meeting. I was sitting back, but after the meeting, I would paint and draw, expressions, and it started like really dark paintings. But I love writing about the painting, so I realized that I have another passion for writing, and you know, early in my recovery, I wanted to write a book, which I had notes from years previous, and it was always also a dream to be a published author. So I did at 7 years clean. I published my first book. Um,
What's the title of the book, Manny? Is it still available?
Absolutely. It's from revolution to revelations. Um, I took it out of Prime. I had some problems with the publisher, and then I went self-publishing. But I do have them. You can message me on Facebook, Manny Mendez, and I'll be more than glad to mail a copy.
I like
I,
that though, from revolution to revelations. I like that a lot. I
the
like,
name is catchy, man. I think
yeah.
I wanted to change it a few times because I didn't want to sound like a holy guru, revelation. But I come from a country that was based on the revolution, and I felt like my whole life was based on the revolution, me fighting myself and fighting God,
Yep.
and things became revealed to me later on after enough hits, and so I stuck with that title. I do speak about God. I do share my artwork in it. I share my stories. I share my poems, and I share my family and friends in there as well because I could not have done this without any of them.
I like it. Manny, tell us just a little bit about your company, FoReel Recovery. What does your company do? What do you do?
FoReel Recovery was just an inspirational organization, man. It's a catchy name. The first thing somebody says when you tell them an unbelievable story, it's like, for real?
For real?
Yeah. So, FoReel started in my mom's garage when I got clean because that's where I painted at and that's where I hanged out at. And
And for everybody listening, it's FOREEL, for real, like camera
yeah,
reel. Okay,
yeah.
good.
And with the filming part, the REEL reel, was also catchy because by this time I had just got the documentary and film festival bugs. So, it started, man, for fun and sport. After that, we just wanted to inspire people, man. We didn't really, see it as, anything, to produce an income from. Man, I was happy painting. I ain't need much. Like that's the God's honest truth. But be careful with what you wish for because what you want and what God has is two different things. But it was cool, that my beginnings were humbling and that I embraced every struggle that I had. Um, and I say that because when I did my first documentary, people laughed at me,
Hmm.
mocked me, and they said, "Go sit your ass down somewhere. Go call your sponsor." Like if a newcomer couldn't do impossible things, and it still jerks at me a little bit, but in a good way. And I one thing I've learned, man, and I tried this concept with helping other people is don't tell an addict what he can't do.
No, don't tell a strong individual such as yourself, oh, Manny, you can't do that. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
and I found as much as I love art, I also love to challenge myself, and in an ironic way, like to shut some people's mouth and prove them wrong. And I went and did my first documentary, and then the For Real name really caught on real quick, and it was just a brand.
And the first documentary, it's all about you and your story.
Nah, man. I've done 6 documentaries, and it's all been based with other people, different
Okay.
topics. So the first documentary ever was, practically no budget, and me and 2 of my friends, and it was only a 24-minute film, but it sparked something. It was the first thing in my life I ever started and finished,
Wow.
and I
And
spent
it's on YouTube. People can watch it.
yeah, it's on YouTube. It's For Real Men Story. There's a bunch of other films, and trailer clips to that documentary. Uh, but that one was the icebreaker because I said, if I there's something to this, and we addicts know when we're onto something, we feel it. And the next one was a women's story, and that one got my first nomination. And I went to the Palm Beach International Film Festival with that one. I went to the Leonard Bushnell uh, Real Recovery Film Festival. Went to New York for the first time um, with that project. and then I made them believers.
I love that. And I'm sorry with the timing of this interview because it's not going to go up until another week. But this weekend there is a film festival. Just tell us a little bit about that.
Oh man! So first it was for real recovery. We added, we like more, and then the sister company came along, which was between me and a sponsee of mine named Big James, and we started the Art of Recovery. And the Art of Recovery was just an exhibit for 2 years. And after 2 years, we said, you know what? Let's add the film festival to the exhibit and call it the Art of Recovery Film Festival. And man, that's been a journey. That's my baby.
I love it. I
You
love it. So how many years has it been that you've been doing that?
seven altogether, but 5 years with the actual film festival.
Wow.
So this year will be our fifth annual Art of Recovery Film Festival.
That's amazing.
And
That's amazing. Do you, just out of curiosity, do you get like addicts who come?
man, we get the, I told you earlier, in being a person in recovery, we know how much talent is out there, and kids who just need something outside the box, non-traditional. With all due respect to the traditionals,
Yep.
this era it's different, and we've had artists in recovery who came to the first exhibit, 30, 60 days clean showcase photography, showcase paintings, and they still clean sober. They still coming back every year. They're still featuring their artwork, you know. So that's what it's really about.
You're changing lives, Manny. I mean, let's face it. I mean, with what you do and with the film festival and the art shows, you're really changing lives of other people. And I think that's absolutely huge, huge. I cannot thank you enough for what you're doing. I mean, aside from just sharing your story with us, you're changing people's lives, Manny.
Oh man, I like to lead by example, and I like to inspire people, and if I can, I don't take credit for nothing, man. I just share my story, and hopefully, when I share my story, somebody can look at themselves and say, man, if this fool knucklehead can do it, I can do it. The rest is between them and God, man.
That's right. And that's what this podcast is all about, is sharing stories like yours so that people who listen can say or can think, if he can do it, if he can come back from what he came back from, I can do it.
And the funny thing is, this is not an infomercial, man. You don't have to pay us to, for us to reveal our secrets, man. It's not a secret. Follow some simple suggestions. Be true to yourself. And work hard. Don't give up, man.
Yep.
And that's been, my process.
I think it's fabulous, Manny. I can't thank you enough, not only for everything that you're doing, but for being willing to come on the podcast and share your story. We know that someone is going to listen and someone is going to reach out. And that's what we hope for every time we do an interview like yours. And I cannot thank you enough for being willing to do that.
Thank you. And I'm honored that you guys also, do what you guys do to share these stories. And we're not, you guys ain't no big broadcast, NBC, Fox News, but what you guys are doing, reaches, places that, those people can't probably even reach, man. And, that's a lot of work. And I know you guys got dedication into this. This is your art, and it takes work, so thank you guys as well, man, for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you, Manny.
All right.
Great interview. The thing I love about Manny's story is the use of aesthetics and art in recovery. We have interviewed others who do that. I'm very bad with names, so I apologize up front, but there's the gentleman who does photography up in New England, and that's part of his recovery. And there's Wes Geer and Brandon Jordan, who use music not only in their recovery, but in the recovery of others through Rock to Recovery. So once again, it's Manny Mendez, Mendez, and you can find him on social media if you would like his book. And his company is FoReel, FoReel.com. So thank you all for listening. And, we'll be back again next week and we'll have another story to tell you. But if you need help or if you know somebody that needs help, please don't wait. Don't wait till our next week's podcast. Get them into recovery now. Thank you and have a great week.
You have been listening to the Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return. For more information, reach out to us on Facebook or go to www.theaddictionpodcast.com. Our email is theaddictionpodcast@yahoo.com.